Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Fit Bod Blueprint. Today, I am joined by one of my longest-term clients, Stacey. We've been working together since around February 2020. Kind of figured when we started together. It's been, quite the journey over the last couple of years, and we certainly have done a lot. And so we're just gonna kind of dive into Stacey's journey, where we started, some of the things that we've been able to do together, the amazing progress we've been able to make through our time together, some of the goals that you had coming into this and how we've worked towards that, things that you've learned along the way, and just kind of where we're at and our next steps. And so, without further ado, I kind of want to, give you the table here and maybe just talk a little bit about where we started, where you started, and then we can kind of just go from there.
Sounds good. Thanks, Tyler. So basically my whole journey started 10-ish years ago. I was severely ill, had a feeding tube. It was literally like my last resort. I was told there were no other options. The doctors gave me a feeding tube. They told me I was either gonna die from complications of it or just die from malnutrition. I was about 74 pounds at the time, and they couldn't figure out what was going on. Anyway, 6 months later, I requested the feeding tube be removed. I had my funeral ready. Everything was checked off. Death was just waiting to happen. The doctors acknowledged my request and told me just to go live my life. What I ended up doing is I took it in my own hands. I did so much research. I went back to the gym. I just lived life for me, changed my diet, and lo and behold, here I am now. And then back in 2023, I reached out to Tyler because I really wanted to focus more on my fitness journey. I wanted to develop more strength. I was burning myself out. I was working 2 jobs. I knew how to do programming. I knew nutrition, but I needed somebody else just to tell me what to do. So yeah, I reached out to you, Tyler, and here we
Yeah,
are.
now we're here. Yeah, that's crazy. I don't know if you had ever mentioned that part to me before, where like you did have your funeral planned already.
Yeah.
If you're okay, maybe expanding on that, what was that kind of like? I mean, what was going through your mind? What was your thought process? Like, maybe expand on that a little bit if you're okay with that.
Yeah. Really, I came to terms with being okay with death. It was just a fact that I had to come to terms with. It was facing me, and I just really was okay with it. Now
Yeah.
looking back, I don't know if it was just a protective mechanism I had, a wall I built. Because even now I think about it, I don't know how I did it at such a young age. I mean, I was 21, I think, when I had the feeding
Yeah.
tube, and now being 32, I could not imagine doing that now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't believe the strength I had then mentally, which honestly, really, I think about it, I could cry right now.
Yeah, I mean, totally. Obviously, it's always a big looming thing, and I think in the back of everyone's brains, right? And I'm sure you've probably been able to carry a lot of that mental strength with you now, though, of like, hey, if I can accept the finality of life at such an early age, everything else kind of probably becomes a little bit easier in a sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. You learn to appreciate the smallest things, and you learn just to drop things that really don't matter. You live your life for you and for those you care deeply about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, that kind of led into, us starting to work together. And, you came into it with a goal of wanting to do a bikini competition, right? That
Yep.
was kind of the ultimate goal. But, I wish we could kind of put up some pictures, and maybe we can do that in the post production, because I think the change that you made from where we first started, almost no muscle, right? And, we came in, your lowest, you were 74 pounds, you said. I think when we started working together, we may have been around 110-ish,
Yeah.
around there. And, immediately, we both were on the same page of, well, we're going to need a little bit of more muscle, and we're going to need to start eating a little bit more food. Maybe from your perspective, what was that experience like of really focusing on increasing those calories, gaining weight. And, we didn't gain a ton of weight, and we eventually capped out at around 130 pounds was the top that we reached. So what was that like for you? And maybe also just what you were capable of doing in the gym. Like, were you surprised at how strong you could get? Take us through that a little bit.
The whole journey of it, I loved the fact that I just followed a plan. I asked you, just give me a plan, tell me how much to eat, kind of guide me, when should I be eating it? Here's my workout plan. This is what you're doing. No more, no less. Give it your all. And for me, I needed that. I needed to hold myself accountable. I needed somebody just to tell me what to do. And I really just needed to be a little bit harder on myself, where I already knew I could push myself, but I needed to kind of tune into the girl who would beat herself up if she didn't achieve a goal she set in mind. Which kind of sounds a little toxic, but I needed that for myself. And honestly, I became such a different person the moment I signed on with you. I look back and I see how much I've changed, how much stronger I've gotten mentally. Yeah. What was your other question?
Well, I would, I think from, maybe I'll kind of rephrase it here too, is really increasing your food intake. And I know, that can be, and I don't want to generalize, but I know for a lot of women, that can be tough, and it can be quite surprising of maybe they don't realize how much they can eat and how much though it can also fuel their performance in the gym and really, change their physique. Again, maybe in the post production, we'll add some pictures of, where you started and where we ended kind of at that 130 pounds. But obviously, you are coming from a bit of a different context, but it can be scary too for a lot of women to intentionally go, hey, I'm actually going to put on a little bit of weight, but in the sense of, hey, we're putting on some muscle. Because I think at the end of it, we were close to like 275, 300 grams of carbs a day at your most amount of food. And that was you in a bit of a surplus, right? And that was intentional. But, I know for a lot of people that can be a little scary.
Yeah. Like, it was scary in the sense where I was a little worried that I'm like, oh, okay, well, what if we put on too much fat mass? What if we're not really building enough muscle? But I also had that trust in you that I knew you wouldn't let me blow up like a balloon. I knew you wouldn't let
That's
me.
not my goal.
And as long
Yeah.
as I was being honest and accountable for my own actions, things would go as planned. It was unbelievable how much food I could eat. And
Right?
I remember how hungry I was.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you
Don't
go
worry.
from a feeding tube to being able to consume around, 2,500 calories a day.
And I remember wanting to also prove to doctors that I could do this, that it wasn't what they thought it was initially. I don't even know what to say.
Yeah,
I put all my trust in you.
yeah,
And anytime I had that little fear, I would make a comment to you, or I would journal it down and then I
yeah,
would wash it away.
yeah,
I just, at the end of it, I honestly just wanted more food because I was like,
yeah,
what if we could put more on? But I
yeah,
also knew the other side of it was there was a limit. There was going to be a limit, and we had to take some of this fat mass off. So
yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think, a couple of things. One, I think this really highlights the importance of the client coach relationship. And it's not something from a coach perspective where I ask for blind trust. I don't want blind trust. I do want clients to ask questions and make sure that they are understanding of what we're doing together. But yeah, I think too there is a certain amount of blind trust that comes with it, but continuing that communication through our process. And it's perfectly normal, to have those fears. And those are, almost more of what I want to hear as a coach than, things are just going well, right? Like, if they truly aren't going well, those are things that I want and I need to know, because then that's how our relationship continues to grow, that trust continues to build. And if there is something that, whether it's from a psychological standpoint or from a just process standpoint of like, well, I haven't been tracking my macros for the last 3 weeks. Like, it's the sooner we can work on that together, the quicker we can start to work past that and then continue to progress forward and continue to become that best version of ourselves. And, kind of combining with that, you mentioning how you would write it down in a journal and then just kind of let it, wash away. I think that is so important. Whether your goal is to be a competitor or not, those fears are still going to be there. And it is a very mature response of writing that down and then just kind of like, all right, I've got it out, it's there, and then I'm going to start to move on. And so, yeah, just even the growth that you've shown from where we've started until now has been quite fun to watch. And just, even in a short amount of time of a couple of years, how far you've come is quite impressive. And so it's just been really cool to, watch you grow and get stronger. And of course, as a coach, like I'm always so appreciative of that trust. I don't take that lightly because it is more than just, hey, here's your macros, here's your training program, don't talk to me beyond check-ins, right? And so, yeah, I think it's kind of been a perfect model of a client where, you do the work, but you're still being honest and truthful and asking questions and being curious about what we're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, in terms of that process here, I'm just kind of looking at, we started in February 2023.
Yep.
We did, what is that? We just under a year of just strict building, right? So we put on 20-ish pounds. Again, I would say though, from the pic, like people probably hear, oh my gosh, like you put on like close to 20 pounds in less than a year.
Yeah.
But I would argue that was probably like 15 pounds of muscle, like from where we started, right? Like it was pretty crazy, the glow up.
A massive difference right there.
Yeah. And so that was our kind of then target date of like, all right, we're going to start our prep in January and we're going to take a go at this. Now, maybe talk about some of your feelings and thoughts of, hey, we were patient, we took the time. I can't stress the importance of that for anyone, whether, again, you're a competitor or not. Taking the time to just eat food, train hard, and build muscle is going to be the best thing for your physique. But what were some of your maybe thoughts and feelings heading into this of like, oh my God, like it's here. Like we are now starting the goal of what we've been working towards.
A lot of excitement, but a lot of fear. Excited to see what was built, to see where my potential lied. Just excited for the whole new process of cutting down, of bringing in the cardio, of just trying to keep my intensity up, working more on my recovery every day. But I had an intense fear of not feeling like I was going to be ready.
Mm-hmm.
Of feeling like I didn't have enough muscle, that I just wasn't going to meet what the judges were looking for. But I also knew that to face that fear, I had to do it to find out where I was.
Yeah.
But honestly, the process of it was incredible. I couldn't believe it. I didn't see the changes happening, even with the check-in pictures, because I kind of kept my blinders on. I just remember seeing like even my family a few months in, and they make a comment, and I'm like, what? I didn't realize. And then all of a sudden I realized my pants were starting to get too big. Yeah. And then what happened then is I had a moment of panic. I had a lot of flashbacks to when I was sick and to when everything that I owned for clothing was too big, or I couldn't find clothes that fit. And then I started kind of having little mini panic attacks, worrying that I was going to be sick again, that I was going to be 74 pounds all of a sudden again. And it wasn't on you. It was just, I kept picturing that girl in my head.
Yeah.
It led to a lot of mental struggles at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I know that was something that, we did talk a bit about. And I know there were some other things, job and stuff like that. And so there was a lot of stress, but how did you, I know obviously it was tough and there were some panic attacks, but maybe what were some of the things that you did to maybe help, calm yourself down and work through that and maybe reassure yourself that, that isn't going to be you again. Or maybe there wasn't. And maybe it was just like, I'm just going to grind through this.
I journal. I journal a lot. And I typically find myself journaling more when I am in times of stress or panic
Yeah.
than when I'm happier. I am trying to work more on journaling when I'm happy and
Yeah.
like in a good state of mind. But I find myself journaling more. I'll vent a lot, whether it's to my mom or like my partner or whatever. I'll
Yeah.
just start venting. Reading's always been a thing, or
Yeah.
cooking and baking. For
Yeah.
others, especially, it's kind of where I can quiet my mind.
Yeah.
I also found myself going back and looking at old photos of me 10 years ago and me 4 years ago, just so I could remind myself how far I had come
Yeah.
and that I wasn't gonna fall back into that state I
Yeah.
was in.
Yeah. To have that perspective.
Yeah.
I think it's also important here where it's like, it's important to have not fitness, again, whether you're a competitor or not, be your full identity. And where you can have those other areas of your life that you can go to turn off that thought process and to not let it become a spiral, right? And I mean, journaling is a fantastic tool for something that where you can kind of just word vomit, right? And I think a lot of times then, some of that subconscious stuff can kind of just then bubble up to the surface and allow you to kind of realize things that where maybe if you just mindlessly scroll or dwell on it too much, it can really create that negative spiral. And so, as much as this can, fitness lifestyle take over, where maybe we are like, okay, I'm stressing about getting to the gym, or I'm, stressing about how I look or things like that. It just highlights that importance of no, like this isn't all of who an individual is, and having things like, cooking or being able to read or whatever it might be for an individual listening to this, to have that still as part of your identity, to realize, hey, what I look like, how much I weigh, whatever, it that doesn't define who I am, right? And it's still important to have that identity of, I am someone who works out, I am someone who lives a healthy lifestyle, but that doesn't mean that it should completely take over.
Exactly. It's always good to have your outlet, and good to just make sure you have who you are established,
Yeah.
kind of, and learn that there's going to be a season where you're a little more fitness based and a little more health based, but there's always going to be parts of you that are a little more, just a little more, just enjoying your life. Whether
Yeah.
you like to travel or just be in nature, go for hikes, or if you're that person that just likes to go for coffee with your friends on Sunday afternoon, right? So.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't always have to be macro tracking, excuse me, when am I training, etc. There is going to be those, the back and forth. I mean, for me, at a point where I'm at in my life, like, I'm working full time, baby number 2 coming in like 3 weeks, like fitness is still a very important part of my life, but it's not like when I was, in my mid-20s. And, it was basically work and fitness, right? Like, and I had all the time and energy in the world to compete in all of those things. And so I think it's important for people to realize that, like, if you are a parent and you've got a full-time job and you have 2-3 kids, it's just not going to look the same. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? And it's still important to change one's lifestyle, but it's not going to look like a competitor. And nor do maybe you don't want it to either. Like, maybe that's just not realistic. And so, having that perspective and knowing where you're at in life is important. So, let's talk a little bit about the prep, and how that went. I mean, it was, again, I'm looking at kind of where the point where we started. We were cruising.
We work
right? Like, really taking that time to have a good metabolism, build the muscle, eat the food. It just from a coaching, physiological perspective, it really set you up for a fantastic dieting phase. Like, take us through that a little bit, and just like, how were you feeling with the reduction in food and maybe some of the small battles, other than maybe that mental struggle that you kind of went through and were working through.
Yeah. So prep, I was so grateful for the fact that cardio never got extremely high or very intense. Like it was intense enough, but I mean, we did stop it early,
Yeah.
but how many weeks in were we? 15?
So we started like mid-December
Uh,
and we ended around March.
yeah,
So
March.
about 15-ish weeks.
But like the whole journey of it, like initially when you gave me my starting macros, I was kind of like, you're dropping that much food right away. Like I had a moment of panic.
Yeah.
I was like, I am gonna be so hungry. And then I was like, hey, no, you signed up for this. Like just shut up and follow your plan. You're fine. I'm not gonna
I
starve.
hope I said it a little bit nicer than
You're not
that.
gonna starve to death. You still
Yeah.
have a lot of food to eat.
Yeah.
Like, chill out. And then I remember like the first week, I was like, the scale went down when I did my check-ins, the whole thing. I was like, okay, cool. We're fine. We're good.
Yeah.
And we kind of kept things steady for actually quite a few weeks.
Yeah. We didn't
Touched,
have to make too many changes.
yeah. I was feeling pretty good. Didn't notice too much reduction in my energy levels, which was nice.
Yeah.
But I was very like intent with scheduling like when I would get up, when I go to sleep. I kept my routine very, very tight knit, I guess you could say. I made sure I ate my food relatively the same time and tried to get my work schedule to work for me. And then that was a whole other thing. But after that, things kind of were stressful in my
Yeah.
other side of life. But I was feeling pretty good. I was excited when you kind of would lower my calories a bit and add a little extra cardio. And I was like, oh, things are moving, things are going to change more. And that whole thing was cool. And then after, once I started seeing the changes happen, I got more excited. I got more excited when I would go pose, try to work on that because I would see a new line or I would see a new definition. And I was so proud of myself. So proud of where I was then and before. And it wasn't even just a physical proud moment that I was
Yeah.
having throughout prep. I was just mentally proud of who I was becoming. But yeah, otherwise for prep, I can't complain too much. Yes, towards the end of it, I noticed the sleep was getting worse, the digestion was getting worse, but don't know if it was just prep causing it or if it was just the outside things in life that were starting to pile a little too
Yeah.
much and I knew I had to take a step back, but I
Yeah.
didn't want to. I wanted to be selfish and I wanted to keep going, but I knew at the end of the day, prep would be there again. I could come back stronger. I could come back with a better physique and not just stronger mentally, but physically.
Yeah. Yeah. One quick note before maybe we dive into like that decision and kind of where things were at. You mentioned the routine.
Hmm.
Um, and just I wanted to highlight how important that is. It really is just, it allows, people kind of can look at a routine or, rigidity and see it as a bad thing where, I would say that the more we can have routine, if anything, the more flexibility it opens, right? Because then things become a lot more predictable. And you're gonna get better results when you do have that routine where it's like, hey, you know what? No, I train every Wednesday at 10. That's
Yep.
just that's part of the schedule, and it is then looking at your schedule and going, all right, here are the days I'm gonna do my meal prep. Like that's a non-negotiable.
Hmm.
Here, I mean, obviously we got to leave some room for flexibility if emergencies arise, but like, okay, Monday, Wednesday, Friday these are the days that I'm going to work out and it's built into my schedule. And the more that you can start to build that routine, the more that process just becomes automatic.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
and that's what we're really aiming for because a lot of times can be a new thing for a lot of people. I mean, even for a first time competitor, you've never been through it. You don't know what to expect. You can hear it all. There's certainly enough of that out there, but until you've gone through it, like for that first time, you just don't know what it's going to feel like. And so whatever that goal might be, especially from a physique standpoint, I want to lose 15 pounds, I want to lose 20 pounds, whatever it is, like it's going to be hard no matter what. Like I always tell people, life doesn't care that you want to look a little better. Like it's always going to be busy. It's always going to be chaotic. That doesn't mean that we just need to always, grind ourselves down and just push through because of that. There are times, and this kind of leads into now what we're, going to talk about in the decision to end our prep early. But, there's going to be times where, hey, you know what? We pushed hard, but maybe life is telling us something a little bit different now. Life changes. And there's nothing wrong with going, hey, I'm going to take a step back. And so I know that was a decision you agonized over, and you kind of already alluded to that. And, we had kind of had the discussion. We're like, you know what, but let's, we both agreed. Let's give it another week. Let's kind of see. But we're starting to maybe, I don't want to say warm up to the idea, but maybe be okay with the idea. So maybe just, give us a little bit of a snapshot of some of just whatever the event or your thought process of leading into that.
Yeah, I noticed like my mental health started going a little more downhill. I was becoming a little too hyper fixated on what I was looking like, what muscle I had, and what muscle I didn't have. I started beating myself up more about I wasn't happy with my posing. I was having a hard time with it. Started doom scrolling a little bit, so I would throw my phone away and try not to be on it. But what happened is I wasn't reaching out to friends and family who were trying to contact me because I was trying to get out of my head, and the way I would get out of my head was avoiding the world. And then I had some issues with my family. My dad had a sudden emergency, ran a couple 100 miles away to go and see them, to help them out. Was very close to losing my dad at the end of it. Thank goodness he is a very strong guy. I get my stubbornness from him, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
He is.
The will to live is strong.
He made it all through everything. I mean, there's still the hiccups with that. I'm still going and helping them out with everything I can. It's gonna be a longer journey for him, but it was that moment where I realized my family comes first. That prep was gonna be there again.
Mm-hmm.
But my family, they were there for me at my darkest moments. I needed to be there for them. I needed to be able to give them the Stacey at 100%, not just the 5%. And I knew that was the responsible decision, and I knew it was going to be the right decision.
Yeah.
Like I said, prep's going to be there again. I'll come back better, stronger.
Yeah, and that, can be a very tough thing for a lot of people to decide. Prep or, pulling out of a diet, right? That they've worked, like we said, like we did pretty much a full year of just building to this point, right? And that can be a very hard decision, but and I think it's a very mature decision, because a lot of times, we get the messaging of you just need to push through no matter what. You need to, hustle, you need to grind, this and that. And, in my opinion, there, yes, there are moments where we do need to do that, right? And it can be a very hard thing to go, is it one of those moments that I need to push through, or is this truly a moment where I need to quit? And I'm not putting a negative connotation on the I need to quit part, right? Like it's just a
reevaluate, a step back and reevaluate the situation, because
yeah. Yeah, and it can be very hard to do that, but having that understanding of, what is important, truly important to myself. And we decided, you decided that being there for your family was far more important, on a much less grander scale for, even just for myself. I started a prep when Quinn was about 2, and I got about 3 months into it. Mm-hmm. And I kind of had that same realization of like, this is interfering with my life as a dad too much, that where I just, this isn't it for me, right? Maybe I'll compete one day, like maybe not, I don't know. But there were far more important things in my life that I decided is going to take precedence over, stepping on stage. And it was that same of like, am I going to look like a quitter, right? And none of us want that look, but it is important to make sure that we have those discussions and that thought process of, what is actually the most important thing to me in my life. And so I'm always going to support my client no matter what. Like, hey, if I want to keep pushing, I'll certainly try and drop my recommendations based off what I'm hearing and feeling from the client. But, ultimately, for the most part, I'm going to let the client decide of what they want to do. But I was very impressed with that decision making when it did come down to it, as hard as it was. And I still think, and I'm sure you think this as well, is there's still tons of positives out of it, right? You got a feel for what an almost full prep looks like, right? We were about 10 weeks, from a full-ish prep. We were able to get a better sense of where your physique was, right? You're gonna know better at a leaner weight than you will at a higher weight of like, all right, like maybe we need to work on the shoulders a little bit more or your glute fullness a little bit more. So we were still able to pull some really good things out of it. We got down to not necessarily the weight that we started at, but close-ish to it. And, to see the change in the physique is insane, right? Like it just goes to show you, like, in a sense, that scale weight doesn't matter. It really just matters how much muscle you do have.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, we made that decision. It was hard, but we've been able to now increase your food. We have gained a little bit of weight back, but I think, we're both wanting to be intentional about that weight gain though, right? Because there is more muscle to be put on.
Exactly.
So how is, because I think it's been, if I look here, it's been 1 week since you looked at me. It's been about a month and a half, right? And we're pretty much back to kind of where our calories were at.
Yeah.
How has that just kind of been now from that mental side of things of agonizing over the decision, accepting the decision, but maybe still not fully accepting it for the first few weeks as we kind of started to go through that reverse process. Where are you at right now, and what were those first few weeks like for you?
First few weeks were really hard. I was constantly beating myself up, telling myself I was a failure. Again, I just started writing that down, talking to people, getting it off my chest, and I came to terms with it. Feeling a lot better about my decision now. As much as I wonder what it would have happened if I stepped on stage, I'm learning I can't change it, so just walk away, forget about it. You can only come back stronger from it. Now things are honestly a lot better. Can be honest, where like my hunger levels weren't really all that great after we stopped. I was struggling to eat. Would just kind of force feed it.
Yeah.
Been enjoying having a few days where I don't have to fully track my meals, kind of go off my intuition. Still keeping track on most days though, just because I don't want to be losing. I don't want to be skyrocketing off scale. But otherwise, things are going a lot better. My energy levels are back. My sleep's better. My cycle's back again now. So my health is like back on point for the most part. It is a great feeling. Strength's going up in the gym. Been having really good sessions. Been enjoying my more relaxed workout schedule, I guess you could say, where I'm not in there 7 days a week, just going there for my 3 and then my 4. I really was a little worried about that at first, but honestly, the other day I was talking about it and I was like, this is so nice. I can sleep some days.
Yeah, I know. Less is more, people. Less is more. I know. People always freak out sometimes of like, that's all that I'm doing. I'm like, hey, you know what? If you go in and you are working out 110% and it's still not enough, okay. But let's do this first.
Yeah, I honestly enjoy it. I feel my workouts. The next day I'm feeling it. I'm really enjoying it though.
Yeah.
Really enjoying it. And I'm in and I'm out. I don't have to worry about anything else. If I have time to pose after, I do some quick posing. But otherwise, everything's been really good. I can't complain about it. I never had any binging. I never pulled up mini wheats in the peanut butter. Those two things stayed far away.
Yeah.
Things are good.
Good. And it's just, the more and more I coach, the more and more I realize and appreciate just the the mental side of this process. And, it, in a sense is very simple from, the training and the food and things like that. But, I think this is kind of a perfect example of just the back and forth of life and still working towards your goals and being okay with it maybe taking longer than we initially expected, and that there's nothing wrong with that, and that is okay to take those steps back to make sure you are taking care of yourself from a more holistic perspective. Because if you are continually pushing and pushing, grinding yourself into dust, it's not going to leave much there, and if anything, it's going to burn yourself out, and you're not going to enjoy a healthier lifestyle, which I think to me is the ultimate goal and should be the ultimate goal for everyone of, we want to do this for life. Maybe it's not competing for life, but having these lifestyle aspects in place, for the next 40, 50 years.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with what you're saying there. The whole point of fitness and health is not just, like you said, for competing. It's for longevity. It's for when you're 80 years old. Do you want to be able to get off the toilet by yourself, or do you want somebody to be hoisting you off? Do you want to be able to just kind of go and enjoy your life with whether it's your grandkids or even like your friends at that age still? Or do you want to be held up in a care home, unable to move, unable to eat, unable to just enjoy life? It's all the little things. So I think the mental strength is often forgotten about when it comes to all of this. I think it's a little more important than even the physical strength.
Yeah.
Anybody can train themselves to lift a heavy weight, but to be able to train your mind to go to the gym, even on the days where you're not feeling mentally the greatest, or being able to pull yourself back if you are burning yourself out by going too often, for the people who are pushing too hard. Those are really, really big hurdles to overcome, and I think it's often forgotten about.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. It's sometimes I often have to pull people back. Yeah.
For being my coach.
Yes, yeah, that's what I'm here for. Sometimes it's, my job is to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear all of the time. So, hey, and you know what? If someone is pulling me off the toilet at 80-year-old, I hope it's because I just crushed a leg day.
Right.
Like, I'm needing help. Yeah. And so, it kind of takes us close to the end here. And I think as of right now, we don't have any hard plans, set in stone. I think, for the rest of the year, I know we're going to continue to build and work on the physique. Maybe next year we will, as we get a little bit closer to the end of the year, hey, maybe we'll be at a point where let's give another prep a try, maybe not. But I think that's, like you've kind of continually said, for those competitors or those, looking to get on stage, like, the stage is always going to be there, and there really is no rush to get there. Like, take your time, eat the food, build the muscle, enjoy life, and you really do want to make sure that, like, life is in order for you to take on a prep. Like, it is a 24/7 job, and so to make sure that things are in order for the most part, it is important before making that decision to get into a prep and hop on stage.
Prep is never going to go smoothly. There's always going to be an unexpected event that you did not plan on happening. And there may be many.
Yeah.
But it's to acknowledge when it's time to continue or time to just stop and reevaluate your situation.
Yeah. Communicate with your coach. Yeah. And if, I would say just from a coaching perspective, if they're not listening and just trying to really push you in one direction or the other, it's a little bit of a red flag in my opinion of the coach just maybe not having your best interest. And ultimately for me, my highest level of concern is my client's mental health, and then just their overall well-being in terms of their physical health as well. Prep isn't healthy, right? Like, it's just your body's not meant to get to those low levels of body fat, and that is why it is a short amount of time. But yeah, those are always going to be my utmost concerns, and if I always feel like one of those is going to be out of whack if we continue in one direction, I'm going to go, hey, I don't know if this is a good idea. Like, we need to watch out for you, the person, and, make sure that you're taking care of yourself. So, I think that kind of takes us to the end. Unless you've just got, any last minute words of wisdom for anyone listening or people looking to compete. I think we covered, a decent amount here. So if you don't have anything else, I don't have anything else, and we can end it here.
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you, Tyler.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us, Stacey, and sharing your story. I think it's a fantastic lesson in just perseverance, what someone is capable of doing and changing who they are as a person. As hard and rocky as it's been, I'm sure you would agree with me that you've come out on the other end, in a much better way.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, good.
100%. Growth has been significant.
Yes. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, that's going to be it for us here today at the Fit Bod Blueprint. Make sure to just subscribe, leave us a great rating, share with your friends. If you are looking for coaching, just you can go to our website, fitbodinstitute.com, fill out a questionnaire, free 30-minute metabolic assessment where we'll just kind of go over your fitness history and develop a plan for you. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys next time on our next episode. Thanks for listening and watching. Have a great day.